Welcome to the Explainer. So, have you ever felt just totally overwhelmed? The endless to-do lists, the crushing pressure of modern life, and you just want to drop literally everything and run off to a quiet cabin in the woods? Believe me, it's a super common fantasy. But what if the secret to finding actual peace isn't about running away from your work, but completely changing how you do it? Today, we are taking a high-energy deep dive into an ancient text that holds the ultimate secret to working without burning out. We're talking about Chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, famously known as Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Okay, let's dive into this. Because this question right here, it's the universal, highly relatable conflict at the very heart of Chapter 5. Do we actually find peace by, abandoning our chaotic lives, tossing out all our worldly duties, and just retreating into quiet meditation? Or do we achieve it by actively engaging with the world and getting our hands dirty with our responsibilities? It's the ultimate showdown, retreating from society versus staying right there in the arena. To really grasp this, we have to look at the historical setting of this incredible discourse. We're on a literal battlefield. The warrior prince Arjuna is sitting in his chariot, being guided by his charioteer, Krishna, and Arjuna is just paralyzed. He's overwhelmed by this massive grief. He's staring down an impending war where he has to fight his own teachers, his uncles, his friends. The sheer crushing weight of this action has him completely frozen. He literally just wants to walk away and renounce the entire fight. Which brings us to Section 1, Arjuna's ultimate dilemma. Arjuna basically looks at Krishna and says he is totally, absolutely confused. He feels trapped in an impossible situation and begs Krishna for a straight, no-nonsense answer. Here's the exact contrast he lays out. On one side, you've got the renunciation of action, the path of just walking away, dropping all worldly duties so you don't create any more karma or suffering. And on the flip side, you have the yoga of action, the path of stepping up, doing the hard work, and actively engaging in your duty. So Arjuna asks him, you praise renunciation, but then you praise action. Tell me definitely, which one of these two is actually better? Moving on to Section 2, the superiority of action. Now, you might expect an ancient spiritual text to praise the hermit living in a cave over the guy working in the busy world, right? But the crucial point is right here in Krishna's definitive answer from verse 2. Krishna actually explains that dynamic action is the superior and, frankly, the much more practical path. Sure, both paths can lead to ultimate bliss, but the yoga of action takes the win. Why? Because as the text's commentary points out, it is way easier to practice. Think about it. For a human being with a mind and a body that are just naturally wired to act, trying to physically do nothing is incredibly hard. It honestly often just leads to hypocrisy. But acting with the right mindset, that secures the soul so much more effectively. And this completely redefines what it means to be a renouncer. According to verse 3, the true eternal renouncer isn't the guy physically hiding from the world. No, it's the person who neither hates nor desires. It's someone who acts, but is totally indifferent to the extremes. They don't do something out of a selfish craving for a reward, and they don't run away from action out of fear or selfish aversion. They are completely free from passion and anger, even while they are right in the thick of it all. Let's look at Section 3, mindset of the non-doer. But how do you actually do that, right? How do you chop wood, carry water, run a business, or fight a literal battle without getting emotionally tangled up in the mess? The text gives us this fascinating list from verses 8 and 9, getting incredibly granular about our mundane, everyday stuff. Seeing, hearing, touching, eating, walking, breathing, even opening and closing your eyes. The sage, the true practitioner of the yoga of action, performs all these biological functions, but holds on to this radical belief: I do nothing at all. They view their senses just as tools interacting with the objects of the world. Material nature is doing all the heavy lifting, but the true inner self? It's just observing. This idea is so beautifully captured in verse 13 with this concept of this city of 9 gates. This city is our physical body with its 9 openings, the eyes, ears, nostrils, mouth, all that. The text tells us that the self-controlled soul rests happily inside this city. The true self doesn't actually do anything, and it doesn't cause anything to be done either. It just resides inside as a calm, totally detached witness. It's completely unharmed by all the crazy traffic moving in and out of the city gates. Now for Section 4, the lotus leaf metaphor. To really ground this super high-level philosophy, the text gives us a gorgeous visual anchor. Now, what's really interesting is looking directly at the authentic Sanskrit source material for verse 10.
You can almost feel the rhythmic structure of the language that was chanted for thousands of years. This is the exact verse that introduces the metaphor of the unattached worker.
And here is the translation, which is really the emotional and philosophical core of this entire explainer. He who acts offering all actions to God and shaking off attachment remains untouched by sin as the lotus leaf by water. Just think about a lotus leaf for a second. It lives in muddy, swampy water, it's totally surrounded by it, its roots are deep in it. But if you pour water onto a lotus leaf, it just beads up and rolls right off. The leaf literally never gets wet. Just like that, we can live in this muddy, chaotic, incredibly demanding world, doing all our duties, without ever letting the stress, the ego, or the sin taint our inner soul. It's an absolute game changer.
Which brings us to Section 5, Samatvam, the vision of equality.
So, how exactly does this detached worker look outward at the crazy world around them? Well, notice the stark contrast here. The ordinary, deluded vision looks at the world and sees endless divisions. It sees who's rich, who's poor, who's a friend, who's an enemy. It's constantly categorizing people based on their outer, physical shell. But the enlightened worker, they possess this profound vision of equality. Because they deeply understand the eternal soul within themselves, they can look at absolutely everyone else and see that exact same divine spark. The text actually makes this incredibly specific in verse 18. It says that the wise see the exact same essence in a learned scholar, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and an outcast. Just think about how striking that is. In a society that was super highly stratified, the truly enlightened mind possesses complete impartiality, literally zero prejudice. It's not that they ignore the physical differences of the world, they see them, but they recognize that the spiritual essence animating every single being is exactly the same. Finally, Section 6, Achieving True Inner Bliss. Let's move to the next part and see how this all builds up. If you can act without attachment, like that lotus leaf, and if you can look at all beings with total equality, the inward result is true, unshakable inner bliss. The text lays out a very rigorous step-by-step path to the spiritual liberation, which it calls Brahma Nirvana. Step 1, you absolutely must cast aside the twin enemies of desire and anger because they just cloud the intellect. Step 2, you have to control your thoughts, basically exercising your intellect's veto power over your restless mind. And Step 3, you must intimately know the self. When you nail this, your happiness doesn't depend on what happens to you externally anymore. Your delight comes entirely from within. But wait, there is a massive misconception here that we absolutely have to clear up. People so often think that detachment means being this cold, aloof robot who just doesn't care about anyone else. The Gita explicitly crushes this myth. In verse 25, it states that those who achieve this highest state actively delight in the welfare of all beings. In Sanskrit, that's sarva bhuta hite rata. True seers aren't hiding from humanity in a cave somewhere because they see themselves in everyone. Their absolute greatest joy becomes serving and helping others, entirely free of any selfish motives. So we return right back to where we started, but now we have a profoundly different toolkit. You don't need to run away to the woods to find peace. The battlefield of life is exactly where you are meant to be. The ultimate question the Bhagavad Gita leaves you with is this: how are you going to interact with the water of your own daily life? Are you going to let the demands, the anxieties, and the ego just soak into you and drag you down? Or will you do your duty, give it your absolute best, and let the results roll right off you, just like water off a lotus leaf? Keep that image in your mind as you step back into your day. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.